All right, we are starting chapter 1, the meaning of miracles, the principles of miracles. So I will go ahead and share my screen. And first in miracles, chapter 1, the meaning of miracles, the principle of miracles. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. One is not harder or bigger than another. They are all the same. All expressions of love are maximal. 2, miracles as such do not matter. The only thing that matters is their source, which is far beyond evaluation. 3, miracles occur naturally as expressions of love. The real miracle is the love that inspires them. In this sense, everything that comes from love is a miracle. 4, all miracles mean life, and God is the giver of life. His voice will direct you very specifically. You will be told all you need to know. 5, miracles are habits and should be involuntary. They should not be under conscious control. Consciously selected miracles can be misguided. Okay. Any thoughts about the first 5 miracles, principles?
It would be quite good to clarify what we understand a miracle to be.
There you go.
That's exactly our question. Every time we read this, even like all these years, it's like, it just starts off, it's like using these adjectives to describe the miracle, like, but without actually saying kind of, this is what it is. With concrete examples of like, I mean, it does say what it is, but it also doesn't, and we find it utterly frustrating.
Well, it has said that a miracle is an act of love.
Yeah.
Mind you, as soon as we think about miracles, I think about the miracle as being something that happens on the level of the mind, as opposed to something that happens in the dream.
Yeah. A change in perception is what I...
In my mind, it's not a physical expression or manifestation. It's something that happens in your mind. In fact, the classic example is when there's something that happens that changes your mind from fear to love. I mean, that's the classic example of a miracle.
We had an experience recently where somebody asked for some help in a group that we belong to, a 12-step group, and they're not a person that we feel like that, who we find like attractive. We don't mean like, we don't like them. Let's just be honest. Like, we're not drawn to them.
You're honest.
And so we thought, yeah, we'll reach out. Nobody else was responding to them. So we thought, okay, we'll respond. And so we responded. We had a Zoom call, and we asked the Holy Spirit to, we can't remember exactly what words we used, but like, show us the spirit of this person, so that we can respond to the spirit of this person rather than the surface of this person, which we dislike. And by the end of that call, we felt deep love for the person and found them very beautiful, and so we guess that's along the lines of a miracle, from what we are sharing here today. We also had, sorry to take up time, but we also had the experience of, so we're reading another book called A Course of Love, which some of you might have come across. And in that book, it says at one point, okay, look, you've been doing this for years. You know everything. It's time that you put it to the test. ask for a miracle, ask for something like real and concrete, whatever will prove to you that this is the truth, that this is real, what you're reading here. And we asked for 3 things, and we'll just talk about one of those. So one of those was for our son to have a healthy child. Now, our son was not trying for a child because he has a congenital illness that can be extremely serious, and any of his children would have a 50-50 chance of that. So they decided not to have children. And we decided to ask for this as a miracle. Okay, let our son have a healthy child. And it was about 6 months later, our son contacted us to tell us that his wife was pregnant, and it was an accident, and they were in a real state. They didn't know what to do, but they were going to have the genetic testing. They live in Sweden, so the medical care is exceptional. And long and short of it is, I have a granddaughter who's healthy and beautiful and wonderful. And that feels like a more problematic kind of miracle, in the sense that we specifically ask for something. And generally we don't ask for things because we just think, well, God knows better what's right for us than we do. So why would we ask for anything specific? So we're just throwing all of that out there, and we'll stop talking. Thank you.
I found the first story that you told us about the person in your group very interesting. And it really kind of spoke to how everything is projection. You know, the dislike for the person was projection, and as was the love for the person. At the end of the whole process, it's all projection, isn't it? For whatever reason, your mind was changed from fear to love. Yeah. I do have a tendency to perhaps oversimplify things, but that's the way I saw it. It spoke to how the projections were changed from negative to positive.
It certainly got nothing to do with her, you know, it had nothing to do with her at all. She was like just the same, like as you say.
Yeah,
it was all going on
exactly. Yeah.
We're not sure that it is possible to oversimplify this. That was all.
Do you mean in reference to what Kusame was sharing, or in reference to like the whole thing?
No, Freddie said, you know, I have a tendency to oversimplify things sometimes, and we're not sure. It tends, we've seemed to notice that it's the, you know, as people, we tend to think that the more nuanced and subtle something is, the closer to truth it really is. But in reality, we found that it's the simple, you know, love one another, do unto others. You know, these are the simple things that are the most transformative and most real. The more we add to it, the further we get from truth. That's just been our finding.
Yeah, that makes sense. I did look up the definition of the miracle in my handy dandy glossary index for A Course in Miracles. Would anybody like to hear it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Course in Miracles states that a miracle is the change of mind that shifts our perception from the ego's world of sin, guilt, and fear to the Holy Spirit's world of forgiveness, reverses projection by restoring to the mind its causative function, allowing us to choose again, transcends the laws of this world to reflect the laws of God, accomplished by our joining with the Holy Spirit or Jesus, being the means of healing our own and others' minds. Note, not to be confused with the traditional understanding of miracles as changes in external phenomena.
There.
Yes, at one point, someone very quickly chimed in, female voice, but I'm not sure it was so fast, I didn't catch who it was, had chimed in and said it was a change of perception in the very beginning when we were talking about it.
That was Cynthia.
See, I don't say much, but sometimes when I say something, it makes sense.
Very profound.
It must have been quick because I missed it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you were kind of speaking when she was, Freddie.
Yeah. Actually, I was speaking when you were, so I apologize for that. I thought you had stopped and I chimed in and then you started up again.
Yeah.
Now I find the number 5 being rather, I don't know what, but it says miracles or habits should be involuntary. And then it says, not under conscious control. Consciously selected miracles can be misguided.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Terry, what was that book you were quoting just now?
This is the glossary, the index for A Course in Miracles.
Thank you.
And it's got the definitions in it from based on A Course in Miracles.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, Ernesto, to your point, it's kind of goes back to let go, let God. You know, when I was looking, when I have shared this a few times, so I apologize for those of you who've been in my groups for years and have heard it so many times. But I was going through an extremely difficult time with the father of my children. And we had divorced and agreed to be friends. And, you know, that was our agreement, was that we were going to be friends, and that's how it was going to best support our children moving forward. And there were a lot of other things in there, but that was kind of the overarching premise of it. And in that, we did a lot of things together, birthday parties for the kids, for each other, for Christmas parties, any holiday parties, things, chorus concerts, sporting events. We all went, and not necessarily together, but we'd sit together and you know, we were very friendly. Well, he started dating someone who didn't think this was a good idea. And because he wanted to honor her wishes, he decided not only were we not going to be friends anymore, we weren't going to even speak to each other. We weren't going to acknowledge each other. I mean, like everything ended, and it was just such a bizarre thing. And so I tried everything I could to gain this woman's trust. Like, I had no interest in being with my ex. That wasn't even on my radar, not in the slightest bit. And so I invited her to dinner. I invited them to dinner. I, you know, would offer to just do whatever friendly thing I could do with her to let her know. And I was with someone, so it's not like I was single. So I was trying to bend over backwards to make it okay. And still, you know, no one was budging. It was, you know, just not going to work. And I got so upset about it because I thought, well, this is really hurting my children and it's not fair. And, you know, it shouldn't be this way. And I started getting upset with him and angry that, you know, how dare him not put his children first, and all these, you know, things happening in my mind. And finally, I didn't have the right answer because I tried everything. And I remember saying, I'm just going to give this to the Holy Spirit. I'm going to let go and let God, and whatever happens, happens. And I put on my running shoes and I went for a run, and just to clear my mind and get into that gap. And all of a sudden I heard, you need do nothing. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's the one thing I didn't even try, right? Is to do nothing, because I thought I have to fix this. And I just remember that feeling of relief in knowing that I didn't have to do anything. And the weight of the world just lifted right off my shoulders, and I didn't do anything. And because I wasn't having to do anything, I was happier and I was more pleasant to be around. And in the end, the whole situation worked itself out. The two of them went their separate ways. We were back on friendly terms again. Everything just worked out the way it was meant to be. And it was so lovely to not have to be in charge, which I guess ultimately is the answer, right? We're not in charge anyways. And once our ego is engaged, every thought we have is going to be fear-based because we've already aligned with fear instead of love. So there's no good answer that can come from that. And letting go and letting God is really the only way through any situation. But it was just such a remarkable situation when I heard that voice for God coming through me, you need do nothing, that I thought, oh, hadn't even occurred to me not to do anything, right? So.
Well, that answered both 4 and 5.
Yes, right? And it truly was a miracle. So just interesting the way things work out sometimes. All right, let's go ahead and I will read 6 through 10.
Add a little point on that, that they should not be under conscious control, that consciously selected miracles can be misguided. My understanding is that consciousness is something that came into being with one of the early splits of the ego, and therefore that consciousness is actually the domain of the ego. I don't mean awareness, but consciousness.
Right.
And that's why I think that if they're under conscious control, they could well be under ego control. And that they could be misguided because of that.
Exactly.
You know, I'm not very adept at explaining all this, but that's something I've picked up along the way. That the consciousness is part of one of the first splits. Mary maybe knows something about this.
Well, part of it is that when we're consciously, we're then focused on an outcome that ego, if you will, has constructed. Mm-hmm. And that may not be what we really, really want or what we're really sending the energy out in connection to. It's to get to the root of what we really, want to see manifest. And a lot of times we're not conscious of that. We create another story around that, and then we try to manifest that. And that's not the truth in spirit. And so letting go of that allows for the fullness of the experience.
May we say something in this? Thank you. It's just our understanding, which means it is way fallible, but that expressions of love for what create the miracle, right? And miracles are habits. So we read that to be loving is a habit. And when we love as a habit, it just happens naturally. We're not consciously deciding to love. We just love, and miracles flow from that love without ego having to involve itself. It just flows naturally from love. So just practice love, not practice figuring out who to love, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well said.
Yeah, and it's not so difficult when you know that you are love.
Right. Excellent, Freddie.
Indeed, and it's not, and the ego's idea of love is not necessarily what we're talking about, because the ego can have its own ideas of what love is, or what loving behavior is in a situation, that actually isn't.
Yes. Yep. From the ego, it's really need or fear, right? Fear-based.
Substitute for love, isn't it?
Right.
5 at a time was a good choice.
Okay, shall we continue? Anybody else have anything to say about 1 through 5 before we continue? Okay. All right, number 6, miracles are natural. When they do not occur, something has gone wrong. Number 7, miracles are everyone's right, but purification is necessary first. 8, miracles are healing because they supply a lack. They are performed by those who temporarily have more for those who temporarily have less. 9, miracles are kind of exchange. Like all expressions of love, which are always miraculous in the true sense, the exchange reverses the physical laws. They bring more love, both to the giver and to the receiver. Number 10, the use of miracles as spectacles to induce belief is a misunderstanding of their purpose. I know I've experienced number 8, specifically when I was at a very low place. I was at a place where I was just done with this world. I had been doing A Course in Miracles for years, and I thought I was getting it all right, and I thought I was making good choices. And come to find out, yet again, I was in a relationship that was not such a good choice. And when I left that relationship, I was really angry. I was angry because I thought, if this is all just an illusion, and if this is all going to be trying, not even about finding someone to live happily ever after with, I thought, I'm just not interested. It just doesn't sound like fun. It doesn't sound like anything I'm interested in. So I'm done. I'm out. And I'm pissed. I was really mad. And I was mad at God. I was mad at whoever invented this illusion. I was mad that they even put it out there for us to be walking around in and trying to make something out of such a mess. And I fell down this deep, deep hole of depression. And the more I succumbed to my feeling of being cheated and lied to and mistreated by all these relationships I had been in, the more I just was like, I'm done. If this is an illusion, I'm out. I'm done with it. This game is not something I want to play, and I'm just not interested anymore. And luckily, I had this wonderful friend who I called one night, and I thought I was having a heart attack. And I called because I had 2 children, and I said, I don't know what's happening, but I don't know if I'm going to be here tomorrow. Can you take care of my children? And can you do this thing for me? Because I think I'm just done with all of this. And he said, but I can see your light, and I want to play something for you. And he played this song for me. And it was just, for some reason, the music touched me. And there was something about the love coming from that side of the telephone into me, where it actually was able to reach me at that place where I had just stopped looking for anything outside of myself. And at that moment, there was a little spark that I just hadn't ever noticed that was inside of me. And it was that love that I had been looking for outside of myself forever and ever and ever, and just never found. I never looked inside. And all of a sudden there it was. And it just, I could see it glowing. And that was the turnaround point. And I remember reading these Meaning of Miracles, because I've done this book. I don't even know how many times I've read this book, but I thought that was that moment where someone temporarily had more for someone who temporarily had less. And that was a true miracle that reached to me in that place. So I wanted to share that.
What was the name of the song?
It was a Beatles song. I don't remember. I'm going to have to I'm going to have to remember that. I don't even remember. I just remembered feeling that love inside of me and like being so surprised that it was there. Like, what is that? Yeah.
I can only think of one.
What's that? What is it, Ernesto?
All you need is love.
It might have been. I'm not really sure.
That's the one I was thinking of, Ernesto.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they do have a lot of great songs, though.
They do. They really do. They really do.
We're sitting with something on 8 right now ourselves. We're sitting on something pretty big.
Okay.
And 8 spoke to it so that we had written it down prior to you finish reading. We're going to go ahead and be pretty transparent with this, just to go ahead. So we think we shared last week that we have dissociative identity disorder, and there are multiples here, 4 of us in here, and we are switching kind of permanently to another personality, the original, as we heal and come together, right? We're going back to that. She is ready to move on and do some things that, oh my goodness, we are just do not feel ready to do, right? And then there are moments that we feel strong enough that we're like, okay, we can give this to you now. But we don't trust that tomorrow we're going to feel that way too. And then, so that temporarily, because we would do it for love, but it's performed by someone who temporarily has more and probably won't tomorrow, and then what? And then, so we're kind of sitting with that right now, waiting to see how that is resolved. But we thought it was interesting that 8 was read, that this was here right now today. So anyway, that's all.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Angel.
And we were just thinking on 8, sorry, Will, this is very brief. When we were sharing about the person that we were talking to the other day, and we agreed that it was, it was all projection, it was all about us and our response. However, we also know that when our perception shifted so that we were looking at this person with love, we know that they experienced that as well. And they experienced what it was to be seen with love. And that is the extension, isn't it? That's what happens.
Absolutely.
I had a good little example. A friend and I were having coffee in an airport, and we went to the coffee counter, and the guy that served us seemed to be having a bad day. There was no interaction, and we both realized this. We were kind of into all this, and so we recognized it, and we just extended as much love as we could to this guy, and we imagined him surrounded by sunshine and flowers and everything and birds, and did all this in our minds. And the next person who came up to the coffee counter, this person was like a different person, completely transformed. Now, I don't know how much that got to do with the little exercise we were enjoying to share, but it seemed to have, it turned us on, that it had a little effect on the person.
Yeah.
We feel it's things like that help us to see that this is one mind, this is one, there's just one of us here, that we change our mind about somebody, and even if they're not present, it changes reality for them as well. We don't have an immediate example, but we got a little example which we were reminded of during Terry's share just now, which was with we totally identified with, like, we've done all this work, we think we're so well, and that here we are in this awful relationship again. And we were 5 months pregnant when the partner decided that they'd fallen in love with somebody else. And they thought that was quite a reasonable thing to do. They didn't mean to, and we had Oh my goodness, and we phoned up this woman and we said, please, please just back off, just, and she said, oh, sorry, I can't, I'm in love too. Okay. And we were like, oh my goodness, we hated, we really did. Her, not him, probably where it should have been directed, but it was her, and felt so viciously mean towards her, and it was horrible. And we lived with that for probably 4 or 5 months, until one day, so our son was born, and he continued seeing her, and they went swimming together on the morning after our son was born, and we were like using the Course and other spirituality in order to accept all of this and tolerate all of this, and not and just be okay, even though all of this was happening, and even though it really wasn't okay. And but anyway, regarding her, one day we were just feeling so angry, and we thought, hang on a minute, we do not want to harbor these feelings anymore. We do not want to feel like this anymore. And so we let it go, and we said, okay, they're free, they can do whatever they like. We are going to be happy, joyous, and free, no matter what anybody else in this world ever does. And it was like an enormous relief. And a week later, she moved 200 miles away, just gone. Right, okay, lesson learned, great, let's move on.
Right? Yeah, I know. It is so interesting. It is so interesting when you just let go.
And now I got that song in my head.
That'll be there until we put another one in there, Ernesto.
Yes.
Okay. Any other conversations before we start reading 11 through 15? I just wanted to welcome Tracy. I saw she jumped on. We are reading chapter 1 of A Course in Miracles. I'm going to share my screen in a second here, and we're going to read miracles 11 through 15 and then pause and discuss. So feel free to jump in if you want to share, or you can feel free to stay muted and just listen. All right, here we go. 11. Prayer is the medium of miracles. It is a means of communication of the created with the creator. Through prayer, love is received, and through miracles, love is expressed. Miracles are thoughts. Thoughts can represent the lower or bodily level of experience, or the higher or spiritual level of experience. One makes the physical, and the other creates the spiritual. Number 13. Miracles are both beginnings and endings, and so they alter the temporal order. They are always affirmations of rebirth, which seem to go back, but really go forward. They undo the past in the present, and thus release the future. Number 14. Miracles bear witness to truth. They're convincing because they arise from conviction. Without conviction, they deteriorate into magic, which is mindless and therefore destructive, or rather, the uncreative use of mind. Number 15. Each day should be devoted to miracles. The purpose of time is to enable you to learn how to use time constructively. It is thus a teaching device and a means to an end. Time will cease when it is no longer useful in facilitating learning. I feel like a lot of those pertain to some of the discussions that we've already had. Anything jump out at anybody if they want to discuss?
I'm fascinated by the last line in 11, where it says, through miracles, or rather through prayer, love is received, and through miracles, love is expressed.
Mm-hmm. Right. I feel like the prayer is that let go, let God. And then the love is your alignment with the one mind of God, which allows the miracles to be expressed.
I have a note in the margin by number 15 with the word where in sentence 2, the purpose of time is to enable you to learn how to use time constructively. And I have the word time constructively circled with an arrow. And what they're really saying is stay present. It's about staying present. And that is the best way that you can learn how to use your time constructively. It is thus a teaching device, a means to an end, and that time will cease when it is no longer useful.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that, Alicia.
It just clarifies, because somebody must have said, well, how you use what do they consider using your time constructively? So
right. Good point.
That's a great point.
We wonder what other people think of the very last bit. Time will cease when it is no longer, well, what's the words exactly, when it is no longer useful in facilitating learning. We wonder what people have to say about time ceasing.
I mean, I think if you go back to the understanding of A Course in Miracles, is that we are eternal beings of love. And time is only necessary here within the illusion. So once time ceases, then I would assume we go back to our original state of love in union with the one mind.
We've had, like, when we were very intensely working with the Course and meditating a lot, we had moments when it felt like that are very difficult to describe, but moments where it felt like it would be possible to step completely away from this reality, from this from the dream, and for the dream to end. And one time that happened, and there was like this just experience of like nothing, except it was real. And that was the only thing we could really say about it, was that, oh, it was reality. It's like everything here is temporary, everything is moving, changing, it's gone, we're living, like we're clinging on, trying to hold on to things, but it's all just completely temporary, like over in a puff of smoke. And what was experienced then was like reality, and it didn't change. And it's like, it talks about this in the book, and it's like that, well, we guess it's to the ego, it seems so completely unattractive, like changelessness, like that seems so sort of boring and not what we want at all. But what we said, so it happened once, and it was like the most profound experience of our life. But when we felt on the verge of that again, there's always a fear, and we're pulling back, and it's really frustrating, because it's like what we want more than anything else, but there's this fear of it, because we guess it's like there's this fear of this what we see, this world not existing anymore, not disappearing. And yeah, we're just wondering what other people's experiences are with all of that.
Yeah, I actually had
me.
Go ahead, Mary.
I was going to say, for me, my experience is when I'm in the present, which is more often than not nowadays, but when I am remaining present, there basically is no time. I get to use time as a tool. I can set a reminder on my calendar that every Monday at noon, I would like to participate in this group. That's using time, but I'm not sucked into the exhaustion of thinking about time, being focused on the past or something from there, or being focused on how am I going to be my better self in the future? What do I want in the future? It's all about what I'm doing now, and that trust that says that if I am being my best self now, the future's guaranteed, because it's going to manifest out of my best self now and then, when then becomes that present moment. And the past contributes to my personality, if you will. But again, I choose what I want to bring into my present moment. So I become much better at discerning and using time rather than being a victim to time, if you will.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I'm present, and if I'm present, time disappears.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, Mary. When I'm no longer focused on time, then time doesn't exist. Time is an idea, it's a thought about time for me. And in the present, there's no need to be thinking about the past or the future. There's just the eternal now.
We're just thinking, like, when there's no fear, there's no time. When there's no fear at all, then there's no need for time. Time is...
Yeah, I can understand that too. Can you hear me all right now that I've got my headphones on?
Yeah.
I put them on because I found Angel's pitch a bit lower, so I put them on so I could turn up for to hear Angel's gifts to the group.
Nice. I know when I've gotten into times when I've been in my artwork, time disappears, right? You fall into that gap. And I know Carl has expressed that too. And Kuzume, I'm sure you've had that experience as well, right? And you're in that, when you're creating, whatever it is you're creating, there seems to be no time. I also had an experience during a meditation on accident where I jumped into a big black hole that had all of these beautiful white lights. I had no idea where I was breathtaking, like literally like took my breath away because it was so expansive. I'd never experienced anything like that before. Wasn't intending to do that, didn't know that that would happen as part of this chakra opening meditation. It was exhilarating. But like you said, Kuzume, as soon as I realized that I was no longer here, that I was somewhere else and that this had all disappeared, fear set in. And I was like, oh my gosh, where's the door? And then it was over. I was back in my body. But the interesting thing with that, and I've shared this with you, a lot of you too, is that my body then had felt completely cleaned of any type of illness or dis-ease. And I wasn't noticeably sick, but we all have this like little bit of like, mucusy, whatever you call it. Nothing. I felt so light and clear and like someone had dipped my body in white light. And I think that's just that separation of I am not my body. I am free. I am as God created me, right? I experienced that not being my body. I experienced being as I am in truth, and everything was washed. And it was really quite a profound experience.
On November 6th, 2020, at 6:34 p.m., as a matter of fact, we had been suffering from a rare and incurable and untreatable autoimmune that's progressive and deadly, and stage 3 kidney disease. We were in bed 18, 19 hours a day on supplemental oxygen. I'd walked with a cane for 11 years. And in meditation, we found ourselves in a words aren't going to work, but when we went to our neurologist for our 6-month checkup next week, we explained to them that it was gone. And so was everything else. And everything was gone. We don't see the neurologist anymore. They put it in the journals that somebody got healed from this. And yeah, we don't use a cane. We run 30 to 50 miles a week now. We just, yeah. Our O2 meter after 6 heart attacks, and now we are healthy. Go figure. Anyway.
That's amazing. It's amazing. And, once you really are able to look at what this is and what the body is, I feel like you let go of your attachment to what you thought it was when you see things like that or experience things like that. It's really amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Angel. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, when you were talking about you nearly had a heart attack that time, I think I told you when I had the same sort of experience, and I was completely filled with light. And I drifted into the light, and it was absolute bliss, and it was the truth. As far as I could have any perception, it was an understanding that this is the truth. And it probably didn't last very long. And I came back to my awareness of being in a hotel room, and I was still here. And of course, I was quite relieved. But after that experience, I was on a much higher level of awareness. I was kind of as high as a kite. You get really excited. Before that happened, I was really, really run down. And I'd hardly slept for 3 days. And after that experience, I was high as a kite, and it stayed with me for about 3 weeks before it gradually lessened, because my ego got involved in ego conflicts in the world. And I relayed it to my partner at the time, who said to me, you never saw a light. They probably put something in your drink. So that kind of thing really kind of brought me down. But after that cleansing experience that you described it as, Terry, and I'd really agree with that, because I was not only cleansed, I was feeling almost superhuman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Any other shares before we continue? Okay. We will go to 16. We're on 16, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Miracles are teaching devices for demonstrating it is as blessed to give as to receive. They simultaneously increase the strength of the giver and supply strength to the receiver. 17. Miracles transcend the body. There's sudden shifts into invisibility, away from the bodily level. That is why they heal. Number 18. A miracle is a service. It is the maximal service you can render to another. It is a way of loving your neighbor as yourself. You recognize your own and your neighbor's worth simultaneously. 19. Miracles make minds one in God. They depend on cooperation because the sonship is the sum of all that God created. Miracles therefore reflect the laws of eternity, not of time. And 20. Miracles reawaken the awareness that the spirit, not the body, is the altar of truth. This is the recognition that leads to the healing power of the miracle. It's as if there was a nice little bow that just wrapped up our last conversation.
Especially that number 17, miracles transcend the body.
Right.
Sudden shifts into invisibility away from the miracle, away from the bodily level, because that's what I experienced in that hotel room.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Any other shares?
Number 16 and number 18 remind me so much of the poem that I've basically lived my life around since I was a teenager. Keel Gibran's I dreamt last night that life was joy. I woke and found that life was service, and I served and found that service is joy.
Yeah.
So it's the giving to others, to our brothers or our sisters or whatever. It's the giving and service of others, as the Buddha always says, that this service of others is what makes you whole and what makes the miracle.
We found, speaking of 16, we found at the bottom of the letter, I consider these words a gift, and by sharing them with you, I become both the giver and receiver of that gift, which really spoke to 16, we thought.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's true too, right? Because don't you always feel so much better when you are able to share? It's just you get filled with this sense of love that's just magnified when, and Course in Miracles says it, right? Whenever two or more are joined, there's that amplification of the love that just...
We would throw a caveat in there. And that would just be like, you know, when you share, you feel good. If you're heard.
Right.
Actually, if you don't get to keep these gifts unless you do give them away. That's the only way you get to keep them. You have to share.
Right.
You have to share them. Otherwise, you don't even keep them yourself if you don't share them. It's like joy. If you don't keep giving that away, you don't feel it anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
I think there's another part to that too, where, and I understand what you're talking about, Angel, if you're not feeling heard, it's almost like that expectation of the other to hear you, but there's a part of extensions of miracles that once they're shared, you might never feel that they're being heard necessarily by the person you're sharing them with at the time. And it could be days, hours, weeks, months, years later that they're able to receive it, because for whatever reason, they weren't able to receive it at that moment when you shared it, but it's still there. Like the gift is still there waiting to be opened when the time is right for them to open it. And maybe they just take it and share it with somebody else. And it's being shared so far down the line that you'll never see it being opened. But the fact that you've shared it, it has been received.
We do understand what you're saying, and you may even be right. But as an autistic person, just let us assure you that sometimes we think we are clear as what, and people don't hear what we say. And so if you don't, and that's what we meant by, you know, if people hear you, right?
Yes. Right. So you're looking for that affirmation.
Yeah. Well, if they misunderstand you, then it can't really help them much, right? You know, if you say, okay, when you get to the end of the street, take a right and you'll be at our house, and they go left because they understand the word right to mean left, they're not going to get there, you know, that kind of thing. And that's kind of the misunderstandings we run into regularly. So,
yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, because, you know, that's not always something that I'm aware of either. So I appreciate that.
So, you know, this made me think of an experience that I had. I was at a get together with a bunch of people, and he wasn't, well, I would say that he was probably, I don't know, 12 or 13 child, I was going to say. And he came over swiftly and put his hand right across my forehead in such a way that it was so tender and loving. And the mother, like, quickly, you know, came to, like, quote unquote, my rescue. And I noticed the instant that she was looking to be apologetic, you know, and I just looked at her and, like, waved her off, like, it's okay. And she said, you know, my child is autistic or something. He had something that, and he would just spring up and do things like that. I mean, to me, I didn't even know him. I wasn't aware of that situation at all. But the fact that that was such a quick thing that happened, and I intuitively or instinctively was able to you know, guard her off not to say anything, because I knew she was looking to apologize for his behavior, which was so instinctual, and that was the end of it. But I never forgot that. It always stood so. It was such a present type of thing, you know, that made me be present to what, I don't know what he was doing, but it definitely was instinctual and just automatic, like couldn't stop from doing it. I kept thinking about that and about how I'm thinking to myself, I wonder what that was about, but it was a good feeling. I mean, just, I'm telling you, he barely was able to touch me. I mean, I could still feel the vibration. It was kind of a vibrational thing. That caused him to do this, you know. And I thought about that, and the more I thought about it, it was just one of those things where I felt like, well, he must have felt something for him to give me that. It was a gift.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Ernesto. Yeah. All right, we have about 3 minutes, so I am not going to read the next 5. We'll have to save those for next week. But gosh, I feel like we've had such great conversation this week. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. It's been wonderful. And if anybody has anything else they want to share, feel free. We have a couple more minutes.
Sorry, I won't be here next week. I'm going to Marianne Williamson's rallies in New Hampshire.
Hey, awesome. July 3rd, yeah, because people might be celebrating 4th of July then too, but I'll be here.
We'll be here. We're going in a helicopter on Saturday, so as long as there's not any horrible accidents, we'll be here on Monday.
Wonderful. Is it like a tour, a helicopter tour?
It's a friend's son. It's their birthday treat off us. He's autistic and he's like obsessed with helicopters at the moment. So we said we'd take him in a helicopter. And yeah, we're really scared. We're not really scared. Why would we be scared? We can't say we're scared here, can we? No, we know that it will be perfectly and exactly and a wonderful expression of love for approximately 18 minutes.
That's fun.
Yes.
Is it one of those glass front helicopters?
We hope so. We're hoping that you get a good view. Yeah.
I went on one once, not expecting. I just was kind of whisked away to like get in this helicopter, and it was exhilarating. It was exciting and fun. So hopefully you'll have a similar experience.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, that's exciting. I can't wait to hear about it.
And we just want to quickly say on the last point, because we didn't say, is that as far as giving and receiving goes, the only way to experience love is to love. Like, we don't experience the love that somebody feels for us. We experience the love that we feel. That's what we, and we can do that whenever we want to. So if we want to experience love, you could just love people.
Just love.
Yeah.
That's
Wonderful.
the best thing about being in love, is that you get to experience all the love yourself just by being in love.
Right.
We hope everyone has a wonderful week, unless you've made other plans.
Yeah, thanks, Angel. Thanks for joining. And I guess we'll see everybody who's able to attend next week. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.